morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Sarah Morris, and I'm the Principal Social Worker for Adults at North Northants Council. And I'm presenting this session together with two of my colleagues. So, Tina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Tina. I'm from Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service, and I'm the prevention team leader. So the person that deals with the safeguarding, adult safeguarding lead, and deals with all the complex cases and all the visits to people's own homes.
Thank you. And Suzanne Binley?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Suzanne Binley. I'm the business manager for the Safeguarding Adults Board here in Northamptonshire.
Lovely, thank you. And we've also got a special guest with us today, Mandy, who I'm going to introduce in a bit. But Mandy, do you want to turn your camera on and give us a wave?
I thought my camera was... Oh, hang on.
Lovely. Morning.
Morning. Am I in? Yes.
You are. That's fine. So I'll introduce Mandy in a bit. Thank you, Chloe. Okay, so we wanted to start this session by involving you in the conversation. So when you think about the phrase self-neglect, what does that mean to you? Have a think about that, and then could you, if people could either pop their hands up if they're happy to speak, or pop something in the chat. So when you hear the phrase self-neglect, what does that mean to you, please? Not looking after yourself, poor hygiene, not eating well, not looking after yourself physically and emotionally, not providing basic self-care, struggling to engage with services, not accepting help when needed, maybe neglecting your health. Can I just ask people to put themselves on mute when they're not talking, please? Oh. Chaotic lifestyle. Someone who's not able, can't make daily living skills a priority. Oh, that's an interesting one, Wayne. Do you feel able to talk a bit more about, it can be a conscious decision identifying an underlying unmet need? Oh, need. Was it, what did you mean by conscious decision?
So it might be someone who maybe hasn't accessed any services, and this might be the first indication that someone's got a concern. So, they start looking a bit unkempt, maybe they're not looking after their personal hygiene. That might also identify some personality issues or, social isolation. Hoarding is another thing, isn't it? So that starts to build slowly, and actually there is an underlying unmet need that no professionals have identified, and this is their way of expressing themselves.
Right, okay, so so thank you. So actually identifying the self-neglect could then lead to identifying other things going on for somebody. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Hannah. Yeah, okay. Refusing to complete personal care. Not attending. Okay, so I think there's been a lot of conversation there about sort of people not completing various personal care maybe, or looking after themselves or their environment. And I think it'll be interesting to sort of think about maybe today whether that is about people not doing that, or not being able to do that. So maybe that's a thing we can have a little think about this morning, is, are people refusing to do that, or actually is it about something more deep set that means that people aren't able to? Could we move on to the next slide, please, Chloe? Okay, so the Social Care Institute for Excellence, which I like to pinch lots of bits of information from, defines self-neglect as having 3 possible strands. So it's about self-care, so people lack of care over personal hygiene, health, nutrition or hydration, which could lead to potentially severe harm or death, or about environment, so lack of care leading to squalor or hoarding, and it's also about refusal of services which might mitigate harm, such as help with alcoholism or risk-taking behaviour. And I think, you know, we'd often see, wouldn't we, situations where people aren't accessing health services, and that would also fall within self-neglect. So thank you. If we could move on to the next. Okay, so another question for you, and I think this is linked really well. So how would you recognise self-neglect? What are the things you might see? Yeah, so people may be unkempt. So when we're going to visit them, we may think, oh, actually, they don't look as though they've changed their clothes recently. Hoarding, behaviour changes. So actually, wow, I can't keep up now. Oh, okay, so people not answering the door. So people may be feeling they don't want to see services at all. Untidy house, wearing the same clothes. People may deny it's the case. Cluttered home, no food in the house. Yep. Not engaging, we don't know. Lack of essential food. Okay, yep. So there may be, yes. So you may, when you attend the house, there may be smell because people haven't been able to clean. Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it, Jenny? You know, if actually there are concerns being highlighted from other people who are picking up on this. Okay, that's interesting, Chris. So, so you work with somebody who can't engage with the other than through notes. But I mean, it's good that obviously you are managing to keep up that relationship via written. I mean, I think one of the things we'll be talking today about is the importance of relationships. And actually, if that's the way that person can engage with you, that's great that you're managing to keep that up.
I may have overstated how well that works.
Okay.
It works relatively well, but at the moment, for instance, so within our services, we're meant to have 24-hour contact. It's part of our policy that you have 24-hour contact. Otherwise, you report as a missing person. There's been cases nationwide where this has been an issue. We don't have contact with him every 24 hours, but we do have scrappily written notes saying, I've gone to, I don't know, I'm out of town and I will be back in a month. But then we find him in his flat. So it's really, really difficult.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think, you know, again, I think what we're going to be saying today is that it won't be easy. It's not easy sometimes, is it? And actually that importance about that relationship is really vital in terms of trying to build that and trying to give people confidence in us that we can support them. And we're going to come on to some of that in a minute. Yes, thank you, Jenny. Medical concerns. Build up of mail or admin. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we wanted to share with you the results of the second national safeguarding adult review analysis that was published in the summer. I'm sure everyone on this call will be aware of the importance of safeguarding adult reviews under Section 44 of the CARE Act. The analysis is funded by the Local Government Association, Association of Directors of Adult Social Care and Partners in Health. And this is the second time the analysis has been undertaken. Really interestingly, there were 652 safeguarding adult review reports that were reviewed, which was considerably more from the first analysis that was undertaken in 2020. Excuse me. One of the interesting things that the analysis identified was that self-neglect was one of the most common types of abuse identified. Now, whether that's because we're getting better at identifying it and recording it as safeguarding, or there's just more prevalence of self-neglect at the moment. So what we wanted to do, there's just 5 short questions here. We wanted to just kind of join you in kind of looking at some of the percentages of some of the findings that were found. I think you'll be quite surprised by these. So if the technology works, we're going to try and share with you some very short polls with the questions. And so over to you, Chloe, for the moment. Okay. So from the analysis of those 652 cases, what do you think was the increase of safeguarding adult reviews with a theme of self-neglect? Now, this is from the first analysis. So was it a jump from 45 to 50% or 45 to 60%? You could give us your answers there, please. Spot on, 100%. Look at that. So yeah, so the prevalence of self-neglect within the across the country has increased by that much, up to 60%. Okay, we'll go on to the second poll now, please, Chloe. Now this comes across in certainly all our safeguarding adult reviews as well. So in terms of communication between agencies, that interagency working, communication and sharing of information, was that identified in 50%, 60% or 70% of cases? So I can't see anything on the slide, on the screen at the moment, Chloe, so. Okay, might have to move on to the next one. So poll 3, what was the percentage identified for poor risk assessment? 60, 75 or 82%?
Sorry, Suzanne, just on that second question, I can give you the feedback on that because I've got the results.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we can come on to those on the next slide. So if we run through these and then we can discuss them on the next slide, if that's all right, Chloe.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the third question, what is the percentage identified of poor risk assessment in these 652 cases? Okay, so we're showing the slight variation. I love this when you can see that little bar moving across. Okay, give people a few more minutes because, okay, so I love it when this moves. So we've got 6% saying 60, we've got 58 at 75 and 33% saying 82% in cases. So I'm just going to park that one for the moment, move on to the next poll because we can talk about those findings in the next one. Okay, so point 4 is what was the percentage of lack of attention to mental capacity? It always feels as though we talk about this one constantly in Northamptonshire, but I know it's countrywide. So your choices here are 47%, 55% or 58%. Okay. Okay, so at the moment we've got 8% of you saying 47%, 19 saying 55%, and 72% saying it was 58%. Right, we're going to do the last poll now. What percentage regarding the absence of professional curiosity? And this is another one that comes up quite a lot locally as well. Wow. Okay. Interesting that none of you think it's as low as 33%. 28% of you said 40%. Oh, we've got 3 coming in at 33%. And 71% saying 44%. Right, let's have a look at the next slide, Chloe, and we can come up with the answers. Okay, so whether any of these are a surprise to you. So from the analysis, actually the percentage of self-neglect cases increased from 45 to 60%, which is a vast increase, I think, from the analysis that was undertaken just a few years previously. As I say, whether that's because we're better at identifying self-neglect in cases or whether there's an increased prevalence in self-neglect cases. Certainly, I think from a local perspective, we have seen that from the Safeguarding Adult Review referrals that we've received across the last year or so. So that's certainly something that we'll be looking into and trying to raise more awareness. A big issue for us, I think, from all our published Safeguarding Adult Reviews is that lack of communication, information sharing. And from this national analysis, that came across in 70% of cases, which is a huge number, actually. You know, I think we're working hard as a board and as a partnership to encourage people to, you know, pick up the phone if there's something that you're not sure of. Pick up the phone and ask a colleague. You know, if a case doesn't meet the criteria for a safeguarding adult, for a safeguarding, and people are in a high risk situation, an adult risk management meeting can be called. That's called ARM locally, adult risk management. And that's where agencies from all disciplines can get together in a room or on Teams. The individual can be invited as well, really to explore how that person can be supported to keep themselves safe. I think I just saw a hand up. Far away.
Yeah, that was me. I'm very familiar with the ARM meeting review. However, how does one get support for that if the person doesn't have those particular agencies involved at this time? So if someone has literally been referred into a service, don't have those, say, mental health teams or whatever, they literally have a social worker. And that's all they have. They don't have any health input or anything like that. What is the process with dealing with a multidisciplinary approach then?
That's an interesting one. I mean, because the ARM process is about multi-agency working and getting people around the table to discuss those cases or to discuss those individuals. Sorry. So this would be a case where somebody was only under adult social care.
Yep. I'm trying to get the ball rolling with a particular individual, you see, but it's difficult because we have so little input at this time. They're fairly new into the system. I have some quite major concerns as a provider, but it's at the moment I'm literally just liaising with adult social care, and there seems to be a little bit of there just seems to be a lack of input across the board.
Okay, well, Sarah's put her hand up. So from a social work perspective, I'm going to call you in here, Sarah.
Thank you. So one of the important points about the adult risk management process is that statutory agencies have a responsibility to engage in it. They have to engage in it. So it might be that somebody doesn't need ongoing support from that agency, but actually they have a responsibility to come together at the beginning to input into that risk assessment and to offer their expert advice. So if there's a statutory agency that you feel should be at that ARM when you're calling an ARM, you refer through to them to attend the ARM, and they should provide somebody to come.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also, thanks Sarah, thank you for your question, Chris. I would also say, actually, for any professionals on this meeting and for colleagues, if there are ever issues that you feel agencies should be there and you're not getting the response that you wanted, you're not getting colleagues involved, there is an escalation process through the Safeguarding Adults Board. The details are on the website under policies and procedures, so it'll take you through, but if there's any issues, you contact us and we'll try and make things happen. Obviously it's not something that we want to be doing day in and day out. We're hoping that those relationships are built within the partnership, that people are able to pick up the phone, but if there are any barriers, then do let us know. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, I think we were on 3 or 4? I've lost track. Somebody tell me, somebody help me.
I think you're on 3.
Okay, I'm rambling on. Okay, so poor risk assessment identified in 82% of cases. For me, that's quite alarming. You know, there's various processes for risk assessment. So you think 82% out of 652 cases. So what's happening? Where are we going wrong? I'm not saying that that's the issue within Northamptonshire, but I was quite shocked at that figure, if I'm honest. So, you know, certainly as a board, we'll be looking at supporting people and kind of raising awareness. Certainly with the adult risk management process, it's been reviewed and we are kind of relaunching that in the new year, aren't we? And there will be sessions available for colleagues to attend, and there's some new guidance, it's updated guidance and paperwork, so hopefully that will support. Number 4, lack of attention to mental capacity in 58% of cases. We know that that's a national issue, it's an issue locally, and we have been addressing that. We recently held a in-person multi-agency MCA training session, which Sarah led on, in Northampton. It was really well attended. We had over 100 people attend. I think some of the table discussions were really helpful. We had case studies. So what we're hoping, certainly what we'd seen from the session was actually confidence had improved as well, just from that being in a room for 3 hours together. And there may be an opportunity to run that again in the new year. Sorry, Sarah, just dropping that in there for you. Okay, the last point, absence of professional curiosity, 44%. Again, we've seen a lot of that in our local safeguarding adult reviews. We found that agencies work really hard supporting the individual with that presenting problem. I think sometimes what happens is there isn't a holistic kind of approach to people's situation. You know, there could have been trauma as a child. You know, that trauma informed approach to practice and having that curiosity to understand why that person is in that situation at that time. Okay, any questions on any of these figures? No? Okay, I'll come on to the last slide. So this is more about the local picture. So this is in respect of safeguarding adult referrals that come into both local authorities, North and West. When we look at these figures, we do need to bear in mind that not every safeguarding referral will meet the threshold for a safeguarding inquiry. In Northamptonshire, there were 2,510 cases where self-neglect safeguarding concerns were received. Now, I've actually done had a look at the data, and that was out of just over 10,000 safeguarding referrals. So over 24% related to self-neglect. And 260 of those went on to have a Section 42 inquiry by the local authorities. Interestingly, West North Hants Council completed the largest number of Section 42 inquiries relating to self-neglect in the East Midlands, which I thought was quite an interesting fact. Just to make colleagues aware, in relation to self-neglect, published safeguarding adult reviews, SAR reference 024 was published at the end of last year. That was relating to a lady in the north of the county. But as Chloe has suggested, you might want to head over to the website. There's lots of information there, but there's the report and the executive summary on that case. And that does kind of identify some of the issues that we've seen in the national analysis, certainly in terms of communication and professional curiosity. Any questions on that? No, I've probably bored you to tears with all this data. I think I got the boring bit of the presentation. Okay, do we want to hand back to Mandy now? Do we want to hear Mandy's story before we move on?
That'd be lovely.
Yay, you're off mute, Mandy.
Do you know what? I think it was because I was muted and then it wouldn't let me go back into unmute. So I think it's just been a case of re-logging in again because I was like, oh no, I want to tell my story.
Oh, well, you're here with us now, and thank you. As I say, one of our colleagues yesterday on a session had exactly the same problem and couldn't unmute, but you're here with us now. Mandy, are you happy to introduce yourself? I know Sarah has spoken with you on the telephone.
Yeah, I'm more than happy.
You're okay. Brilliant. Well, we're so pleased that you're here.
Well, do you know what? For me, because I've recognised that I have a problem with hoarding behaviour, it's really important for me to, excuse me, to share as much as I possibly can from potentially a different point of view. So if I just tell you a little bit about myself, I was in a situation where I was very unhappy. I'd had a high-powered job. I was probably exhibiting some signs of ADHD, but not noticing it. I'd worked at a very large charity for 18 years in a capacity as a marketing campaigns manager. So I was dealing with some pretty high, high campaigns. And I was just not feeling very happy. I had occupational health involved at work because I wasn't really performing, and I was kind of told, oh, you're not really performing at the same level that you used to. Now looking back, I understand so much more about my whys, which is a very big thing for me to talk about my whys. So I'd gone to my doctor, already had occupational health involved. I'd gone to my doctor and I said, I'm just feeling really unhappy, really sad. I'd had some traumas. I'd lost my mom and lost my dad, and I'd had some bad relationship that had ended. So, and I was kind of getting older. So, I always think about, I don't really ever like to stereotypical, but I think the older you that get, the more life experiences that you have, and the more life experiences that you have bring you to the person that you are now, here and now, which is something I've really done a lot of self-reflection on and been able to, luckily. But a lot of it has been part of my own journey. I don't have any social workers or anyone helping me in any way. So it's been very much my own journey. So I like to give back from my own life experience to help people understand a little bit more about hoarding behaviour. So I'd gone to my doctors and I talked about, feeling really unhappy, really sad, not coping with life very well. And then I happened to say, and I've got a lot of stuff. And she said, do you think that you may have hoarding behaviour? And I just laughed and went, no, I just have a lot of stuff. It's beautiful stuff. which is very, you know, I'm here today because I talk about regaining my sparkle. I talk about, you know, that I, you know, if you wouldn't notice in the street, you'd probably just look at me and think, oh, you look, she looks nice and sparkly. Well, you can't tell what's going on in a person's mind, and especially if you can't get into their house, or you don't need to get into their house. It was very easy to deflect my friends. I'd just go and say, I'll come and see you. So she suggested that I went to a local hoarding support group, which was the start of my journey. And the start of, you know, like my road, I talk about road of recovery, but only after road of recognition. And I think recognizing that you have a problem and wanting to do something about it is really important. I went to the hoarding support group for about 2 years, run by a local charity. So I don't know if you've got any hoarding support groups locally, but it's a great place to start. I'm now an ambassador for Hoarding UK, the charity, and you know, I very openly talk about my story. There was a time where I wouldn't have spoken to people about it because I was a bit embarrassed. I was able to not let them, you know, they just didn't come and stay because there was no room. The house had gone from 4 people living in it to 1. And because I was really anxious and really upset and at work, at every lunchtime, I was able to go to 2 charity shops. So that was kind of my addiction. And it was, you know, for me, it was like a dopamine high of, oh, I never know what I'll find. So, yeah, I'd gone there. Then I contacted Hoarding UK because I realised that the slides that I was watching and listening to, you know, were repeated, and I was like, right, I'm never going to grow if I don't leave. So I'd contacted Hoarding UK. I spoke to them, and I went along to their second conference. Met Megan Carnes there, and Stuart Walmsley, who put me in touch with yourself. So I met kind of all these amazing people that all knew about hoarding, and there were a few hoarders there, people with hoarding behaviour, hoarding disorder, but not that many. But I did realise that I was surrounded by people who understood about the problem of having a lot of stuff, to the result that it was hard to move around my house. It was hard to have people over. I'd lost my table. I'd lost being able to get to the skybox, you know, all these things. But I hadn't realised until, you know, they talk about hoarding blindness, and it was very true. And then all of a sudden the light came on, and I was like, oh my goodness me, Mandy, this is a real problem. What are you going to do about it? And, you know, it was very, very difficult. But I think for me, the first thing was to recognize that I had a problem and I needed to change because I wasn't happy in the situation I was in. I then went on because I was on Hoarding UK's Facebook page. I was posting a little bit, though there, I'd obviously met all these amazing people. Heather Matazoo, who has Clouds End and helps do Hoarding Awareness Week. You know, Kerry Rudge, who had done the clutter rating form. She'd brought it over she'd adapted it for UK use. So the icebreaker form, as it's also known as well. So you can fill it out and take it to your practitioner and start the conversation, because it's very difficult. Where do you start? Because the TV programs had portrayed so badly people with hoarding behavior that it was almost like, if you watch it, people are going to go, oh my goodness me, look at them. Oh, look, that's really dirty. So I feel that there was a lot of shame and stigma by the media that had created it with programs about hoarding. So I was approached by the producers for a program, Hoarding Buried Alive, which was a Channel 5 production. And Crackit Productions contacted me and asked me if I'd go on the program. I said I would. I showed them some pictures of my house, but I also said, but you won't clear anything out of my house, because it's not about clearing, it's about finding out the why. And bravely enough, they said, okay, we'll do it your way. And I said, well, we do it my way, or I don't do it at all, because I was basically, you know, putting myself out, and lots of my friends didn't even know how bad it had got, because they didn't come and visit my house. I went to see them. I didn't talk about it because, you know, I just didn't. I had a love of vintage clothing, so they were always seeing me looking you know, very smart and outgoing, and it's very easy to put a mask on and say, yeah, I'm fine, absolutely fine. So it was only my close friends that knew I was going through a really depressed stage in my life. I wasn't really coping, and I would just say, yeah, I'm fine, you know, flowers, lipstick on, and I would look fine. But internally, I was sad, and I hadn't realized that I was probably going through, you know, a real big mental breakdown. I was exhibiting signs of ADHD and OCD. I knew about the OCD, but the ADHD signs I didn't realize. I was in an open office and I'd gone from a small office, so that was also breaking me down as well. I felt having occupational health was kind of almost like letting myself down. So I tried to get through and struggle through, but you know, looking back now, it's like I really needed help. But I really need to understand that I had a problem. So I did the program, and you know, they asked me to be a little less presenter-like, and I said, no, I'm not a victim. You know, I'm standing up and I'm speaking out, and I want people to understand more about hoarding behaviour. Like any mental health addiction, you know, it could have been smoking, could have been drinking, could have been drugs, it could have been eating, not eating, but mine was hoarding behaviour. And I just went charity shopping, and I just bought more, and I just bought them back, and I just piled them up again, and just didn't see it until there was very little room left. And even after the program, I carried on because I was unhappy. So it was very much a state of mind for myself. I've now moved very much further on. I still talk very openly. So thank you for inviting me today. I spoke recently at the Clean and Tidy show up at Excel, because I said it's not all about a clean and tidy house. It's actually, and Hoarding UK are one of the charity partners along with Shelter. So luckily someone believed in me and said, here's a platform, speak up and speak out. And so I did. So I have no, I'm not ashamed of anything at all now, because I think that was the big thing. It was feeling ashamed to talk to other people about hoarding behaviour. And I've opened up a pop-up shop with all my beautiful clothing, because I loved vintage from about 16. So it was my dopamine high. And so that was something I loved. And I think if I'd have loved drinking, potentially maybe I'd have carried on drinking, but that wasn't the same dopamine high for me as going and finding a bargain. So I don't really know what else. I mean, I could go into forever and a day, but for me, the way through it. And so I'm very strong advocate of ambassadorship for Hoarding UK, and I help create awareness as much as I can and support Hoarding Awareness Week in May, because campaigns work was my background. So I feel I bring a lot to the capacity, the area of hoarding behaviour, but from a person who does actually hoard. And I'm not afraid to say I speak at fire brigades, and I just talk from my own personal life experience, not from textbooks. And that's what I wanted to share with you all. I think it's a Healthy Homes programme that Hoarding UK have put together. Realise that it's not a quick fix. You have to actually do it over a longer period of time, and it could take up to a year before you've worked with the person to understand their why, and then try to work with them to help them visualize where they want to be, because they have to want to engage as well and want to make a change in their own lives. So is there anything else that anyone would like to ask?
Well, do you know, Mandy? Well, do you know, Mandy, I put my hand up because what I was going to ask you was, what is the message you would want, you know, what's the one thing you'd want, you know, colleagues across different agencies in Northamptonshire to take away? And then you said the importance of sort of working with people and building that relationship and understanding the why. Yeah. So I'm guessing would that be your answer then? Is that the one thing you think we need to take away?
Absolutely. I mean, I've done a couple of other healthcare, and it's very much about getting everyone round the table. I mean, I often sit in on learning, you know, conferences when we talk about, you know, it may be that the local fire brigade needs to be there. We need to have the social worker there. They were all, you know, I heard a story when someone was like, going to hospital quite often, but they were falling over at the hoard. But then there was another one, the fire brigade had been called, someone could smell gas. No one was linking everything together as a case for this is one person, but how many people are in that equation? Is it the social worker? Is it, is it the hospital? Is it the fire brigade? Is it they get called out to the gas? No one's linking everything together. So if you see in isolation and you don't work together, I think, you're really missing all being together as that person. But I think to share, we also have to remember that there's a central person here, and they're not going to want you all talking about them in the background. They're going to want to work with you, or hopefully they'll work with you, because it's very easy to say, oh, it's none of your business, and they get more and more isolated, and the windows will start to close, the house will start to get full up. I think it's about really trying to understand the why and helping them move their stuff out, because the various different, I mean, I said, you can't move everything out of mine, they have a very short budget, and I said, and you would not put my stuff into the skip. But someone would say you've got a lot of stuff, and yes, it is a hoard. But there was only one point I was collecting lots and lots of papers, the free papers, and then I had to change my own mindset. So I did a lot of work with a lady called Amanda Pete and Mind Your Mind about changing my mindset and understanding my why as to why the hoard was there in the first place. And so that was a massive thing. But multi-service agencies working together is really, really important. If you can set up a hoarding support group so they can sit with other people that have the problem. It's like going to AA. You almost want, when you sit with the other people that are struggling with alcoholism, then you can say, oh God, I do that. So people can be self-motivators. I stand in my shop every single day. I've got someone covering it today, talking about, it's like being in therapy. I say, do you know that this shop is set up? It's to help raise awareness of hoarding. I'm a person with hoarding behavior. And you can see them look at me and go, well, you don't look like a hoarder. And it's like, well, what does a hoarder look like? Exactly. And most of the time they will all, oh, I've got a father I hadn't realised, haven't visited for a while. Well, that's part of it, probably, that they haven't visited for a while. And they say things like, oh, I tried to help him, but they didn't want to. It's about control. The central person needs to have that control rather than have the control taken away, because I feel that we all use addictions as a way of controlling what we can't control. And that's death, life, people not visiting, being unhappy. So you have to look at where do I want to be? Where am I? Where was I? Because for me, hoarding was only really bad in the last 10 years as I've caught up with, depression, anxiety, bad relationships, life experiences that people go through. I think it's important to try and find out, but you have to gain the trust first, because otherwise they'll probably say, oh, just another busybody. They don't even understand why, but probably the person doesn't understand why.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mandy, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I don't know whether you can see the chat, but there are so many thank you messages going through there. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Do you know, though, this is when it makes it all worthwhile for me, that people are hearing, that are listening, and it's not just another person that's been textbook and is a psychologist. It's someone that gets upset. I cry in my shop. I get upset. I talk about, hoarding support groups. I talk about go online with help for hoarders. I mean, Jasmine Harmon, A Place in the Sun, her mom is a hoarder, Vasula. And, I joined in, I was invited on ITN News to talk about, hoarding. I know Joe Cook, who wrote a book, which is a brilliant book, Understanding Hoarding, really helped me and opened my eyes gave me knowledge to understand why I was doing what I was doing, like any other, addiction. It was my dopamine highs, and I could control it until it started to control me. And that's when I was like, I don't want to live like this any longer. I can't. It's not good for my own mental health. And I want to get to the seaside and leave behind my old life.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So
It really
thank you.
does help. I'm doing something good.
You
making
are
a difference.
definitely. Thank you. So I think we're going to hand over to Tina for the last bit. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you. Sorry, my screen just froze. That was really weird. Just as Mandy stopped. Mandy, thank you so much. That was so powerful. And being from the fire service, I totally get where you're coming from with all of your stuff you said about linked up partnership working. So we wanted to kind of go on to talk just literally about what Mandy's just said, which is around why it's. Oh, I've disappeared. Am I back?
You're there. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, everyone froze then. Why it's so important, just as Mandy's just said, we've heard that self-neglect is obviously a national and a local challenge. And we've heard that there are increasing numbers of people harmed and dying. And we've recently, a couple of weeks ago, helped EMAS to get a casualty out of a hoarded property, where unfortunately they did lose their life. We don't know for sure, had we have got to them, EMAS could have got to them straight away, would they have survived? But because they had to call us to get over the hoard to try and help them get to the person, we don't know that that was vital time that kind of, you know, made them not be able to kind of survive. So it's happening in our county, and it is really real. It is complex, and we know that people, as Mandy's just alluded to, get isolated, and there will be a long history of social and economical challenges, and it is a symptom. And Mandy, you described it so perfectly, better than any of us could ever do it. We need to get to that core. There'll always be a core reason why that's going on. And that core reason might even be something at the time that person themselves don't know, because they've buried that deep, that trauma, that potential kind of something that's happened in their life. They might not know why, but there will be a reason. And as Mandy's done, there'll be another outlet that will give you that dopamine fix that will make you feel better. So it's about kind of, I think it's more about knowing that, yes, it's not always, it can sometimes, it's not a choice. Sometimes people are socially excluded, they've got health inequalities, they haven't got access to those services. But a lot of the time it is triggered, and there'll be a reason why people have found themselves in that situation. And as Mandy alluded to, everyone has a part to play in that. We have to come together as agencies. No one can do that on their own. It could be anyone that we know, that we've come across, that we're working with, a service user, and there'll always, like we said, be something that's led that person to this point. Is it trauma? Is it bereavement? Is it PTSD? Is it mental ill health? We've got quite a few occupiers, like Mandy alluded to, with drug and alcohol misuse, and that has led to severe PTSD. They were high functioning sort of sergeant majors in the army, and they've come out and they find themselves in this real state of self-neglect, where we'll visit and there's nothing in the house at all, no food, no carpets, no furniture. They're just sort of laying on their sofa or their floor drinking themselves, kind of, because they just don't know how they got there and why they're there. So it's about, I guess, next slide, please, Chloe, sorry, it's me not talking slow. So I think it's about that kind of how we engage. They are humans, we're person-centered, there's a person at the center of this, and that person is just like us, and it's about kind of putting yourself in those shoes and remembering that. Can't underestimate the value of that importance of what we've all said today about the building up of that relationship and being patient. It could be years. We have hoarding cases on our books that our complex case officer has had for 4 years. It's not a quick fix. And if we intend it to be, like Mandy's alluded to, if somebody had come in and said, okay, we're getting rid of your stuff, it's just rubbish, that wouldn't have worked, because that person, to them, that's their treasure. It's not stuff. We have people keeping parts of themselves. We have people keeping bodily fluids. That to them it's their treasure. And I think we've kind of, at conferences, when we've heard like Clouds End, Mandy speak, they've been amazing, and they've said things like, you've got to liken it when someone's self-neglecting to ripping a sort of comfort blanket off of them. You're almost leaving them there naked if you're taking things away from them. That person already feels that vulnerable and that low, and then we're kind of doing something to severely affect their mental health. Always, as Suzanne alluded to, use our professional curiosity. If we can't get in, then we know if something's not right. If we have to sit on a doorstep and we have to talk through the letterbox for several times that we go over, we will do that. As a fire service, if we can't get in, we are quite a trusted brand. So sometimes people might not trust social care, they might not trust the police, or someone that's coming to do a welfare check. They may let us in. If they don't, we'll sit on the doorstep, we'll meet in a park, we'll meet in a coffee shop, we'll do whatever we need to do to build that rapport up. And if we haven't got the rapport or can't get the rapport, because it may be something about that individual that the person isn't clicking into, then there may be someone else, like a housing officer or social worker, working with that person that obviously they've then got the rapport with. So we can then, as Mandy said, work in partnership, because there'll always be someone that someone may have that little bit of rapport with, that they then feel they can let that person kind of into their life and potentially into their property. Communication, like we said, go at the person's pace, use encouraging language. It could be a tiny change, but acknowledge it. If we can just get them to move stuff outside of away from an escape route at the front door, and that could take us months, that's what we'll do. Because if we can get into the house and people can get out in an emergency, then that's the first battle, really. Because if you need the emergency services, we need to be able to get to you, or you need to be able to get out. If we can make things a little bit safer in there, maybe you've got hoarded stuff around your heat source, maybe you've got no running water or no kind of heating, then if there's something we can do that will get that buy-in, because we'll show them that we're there to help the person, we're there to stop the risk and reduce the risk and try and help that person live more safely and more happily. And it's not about, like you said, taking the hoard away. We've had severe neglect cases. We're not removing the person from that home, because that person, if they've got capacity, can choose to stay in that property. What we want to do is make that person's life that little bit better, so that they come out of that and they hopefully get the help and support they need. Let them know all the support, and acknowledge their feelings, and reiterate that we're there for them and their safety, and we're not there, like we said, to kind of take things away and do things to them. Be open and honest. We've got to be as non-judgmental as possible. If you walk into a severe self-neglect case and there is, like Sarah said and Suzanne said, there's a smell, there's the look, and you can't, on your face, you can't walk in and sort of look like, oh my God, this is disgusting, because that person will not build rapport with you. Some cases we have to go in kind of suited up, because there might be really severe cases of fleas or something in severe neglect, and it could be dangerous to our health. I had a pregnant employee that had to wear a mask into the severe hoarders cases when it was excrement. So there might be cases where you have to, but we try not to, because we don't want to drop that rapport by them thinking that we're judging them, or we're kind of not happy with how they live. So it's about that kind of being non-judgmental and supporting. It's about judging capacity as well. Has that person got the capacity to live like that? Or as Sarah alluded to, are they, because even if you choose to live like that, if you are causing yourself potential risk of harm or death, then obviously there is still the possibility we can step in and try and work with somebody even without their consent, if we feel that that is an actual real kind of problem. And don't forget, like we said, obviously this is really triggering, and you need to use your professional supervision as well, because in severe self-neglect cases, it can be really emotionally draining for the individuals working there as well. And you need to be able to go back and kind of offload that, so that you can give the person your best you when you kind of go out to help them. Next slide, please, Chloe. Have we got time for these case studies? I know we're literally on 11 o'clock now. Do we want to still look at them? Are we okay to do that?
Is everyone happy to stay on the call? I did just put a message in the.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you, Suzanne. Sorry, I didn't see that.
No, you're fine. No, you.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll quickly.
Okay,
we won't sort of take
thumbs up.
Perfect. We won't take too long over them. So we've just got two case studies here from the county. The first one is Louisa, and Louisa called EMAS because she got pains in her stomach. When they visited, they didn't find anything medically wrong, but concerned she looks extremely thin, doesn't look to have washed recently or changed her clothes, no sign of food in the house, and the bathroom is extremely dirty. She's very embarrassed when EMAS colleagues ask her about this, and she agrees to referral to adult social care, but only in order to end the conversation. Anybody on the call that's worked with someone and recognises this kind of situation, and how they worked with that person, how would we work with a person that we've come across in this situation? Has anybody got any brilliant tips that they've kind of used, or tips that they've heard today that they would use? Or is anybody from the health kind of agenda that they've kind of had this happen to them? Nothing to add currently, yeah. So some people have kind of heard of the situation. What would colleagues do then? If you haven't come across this before, is there anything in there that you would kind of yeah, try and build a relationship? Yeah. First thing we need to do, isn't it, is make sure that she's not going to shut down. She's opened up, albeit we think it may be because it's to end the conversation. But let's gain her trust. And it is about building that rapport, because if she trusts us and doesn't think we are being judgmental, then it might be that we'll be able to get in and get to the kind of root of that problem. Keep the communication open. Yeah, that's really key. Because if we can do that, we can then carry on from here to obviously try and gain a little insight into her background, why this is happening. Is it because she can't go shopping? Is it because she can't fetch food herself? Is it because she just needs a little bit of support and help? Does she not have anybody potentially to support her? Can she not afford to buy the food? Does she need food banks? Yeah, that's great. Don't push it. Leave some info for her to consider in her own time. Find out if other services are involved. Brilliant. Because there could be somebody that's already involved and helping. And that's when we always say, if people come across people, pick up the phone to other partners. And like as Chris said, if you need somebody to attend, if you know you've probably seen on this call now professionals from different organisations, just give one of us a call and we'll be able to kind of let you know if we A, are working with this person already, and B, if we can be involved and kind of add something to a potential multi-agency meeting, an arm meeting. But absolutely, I think you kind of all hit the nail on the head for that one. Next slide, please, Chloe. I think we've got Derek next. So Derek's slightly different. He's living in a housing association property, but has been warned that he's risking eviction because he's not looking after the property. He's got leg ulcers that are getting worse. He tells professionals he'll go to his GP, but he hasn't done so. And professionals are concerned about his use of substances and impact this is having on his physical health. He met with Change, Grow and Live and built a good relationship with his worker, but now he's stopped attending appointments. Has anybody come across this before? Or if they haven't, what do they think they'd do? Or have you come across it and had some good tips on how you've kind of dealt with this situation? There's lots going on there with Derek. And we know he also lives in a rented property that's risking eviction. Eviction which will not help anything, bless him, because if he gets evicted, he's potentially going to be homeless, and then that's not going to really help his situation at all. So probably a key thing to start here with is partnership working. Yeah, a home visit if he's not going out. So is there another way of, can we either support him to get to the appointments, or can we actually do a home visit? Yeah, does he understand the risks if he's evicted? Really good. Does he realise he'll be on the streets? Yeah, ask them to see if they can build the relationship again. We've already said it's that constant working, isn't it? It's that keep going, keep building that rapport, don't give up. Yeah, housing association welfare officers might be able to help there. They have the kind of be able to say we're not evicting him, even though this would normally be an eviction situation. We're not going to do that because that will make the situation worse. Yeah, and do visits, joint visits with people he's built that relationship with. Absolutely fabulous. Oh, thank you for that. That's some really, really people have obviously worked in these situations, and that just proves how we can help each other. Yeah, does he need help getting to his GP? It could be that he's made the appointment and then actually doesn't go because one, it could be anxiety, two, it could be he can't physically get there. So it's all of those things, isn't it, that we've not taken the time to get to know him and know what he needs. And again, we always go back to that person-centered approach. There's a person at the center of this that needs our support and help, and we've got to be there to offer it, even if we have to do that repeatedly until someone is ready to reach out and accept that help. Okay, next slide, please, Chloe. We've just got a list of resources here, and honestly, some of them are brilliant. All the kind of guides and the bite-sized videos, if you want to kind of share any of this with your staff, if you want to go through them yourself, use them. Everything here is incredibly useful to back up everything we've said today. I know Mandy had already mentioned Jasmine Harmon, so we've got a little link on there as well to her mum's battle with hoarding. The hoarding framework is on there, all the tools about working with kind of self-neglect, and the practitioner's guide, and the top one as well, working with people who self-neglect, the key messages sheet is a really good one-page kind of guide to share as well. So some brilliant resources there. Next slide, please, Chloe. Just before we wrap up, we're just going to end on a high. So we want to just end with some quotes that we've had from people that we've worked with self-neglect. So just really to kind of show that if you do work together at the centre of that, with the person at the centre of us, then this is kind of some of the success stories. So we've got, thank you so much for all your patience and for treating me with such dignity and respect. I know I've been a total nightmare. This was a lady with alcohol, hoarding and PTSD issues, and it was a long time. It was about 3 years we worked with this lady to support and help her and to get her to a safer situation that she's living in. So that's kind of really a success story like Mandy's. She was a clothes hoarder, and we actually got her that dopamine fix because we had quite a big influx of refugees, and overnight we'd not been able to help her clear her clothes, and then overnight she bagged up 27 bags and took them to the drop-off point because she knew that someone else needed them more, and that gave her that dopamine fix that Mandy was on about, that kind of made her want to help and do something more, and gave that feel-good factor. We've got thanks for not giving up on me. I know it took years, but we got there, and I feel like I have my life back. And that was someone we worked with for 2.5 years with hoarding behaviours. Oh my God, this house is amazing. Almost can't believe it. Everyone's worked really hard. I want to say thank you. I've not had a clue how to even start helping him. And this was their father. Over the past years, he'd never let me look through the door of his house. And I'm thinking now he probably feels much more house proud. I can actually visit. And the last time I went in was 15 years ago. 15 years of not being in. And like Mandy said, you can get away with going, I'll visit you. It's easier. And nobody even realising. They know it's just the start. We've only just kind of started getting the house cleared, but obviously he's feeling so much better enough to have had his daughter in and had her for a cup of tea, which has made a massive difference, and been able to have his grandchildren around, which has made a massive difference to his life. Drug and alcohol misuse was, thank you for speaking to me like I'm a human being, just really goes to show that there is a person there, and it doesn't matter what our thoughts are, it doesn't matter how, if we've got a bit of unconscious bias going on, put it to one side and let's work with this person like they're human, because they've not chose that way of life, something has led them to this place in their life. And then the last one, the difference professionals made to my auntie's life is immeasurable. Thank you for your understanding. And that was a severe neglect because of health issues case. And I'm handing back to Sarah to wrap us up.
So thank you ever so much for all your contributions today. Really appreciate that. Chloe, was this one, and are we popping this in the chat, or is this a word cloud?
This is a word cloud.
So Chloe's just going to launch it, and all we want from you is one word that tells you how you found today's session, and then hopefully that should then pop up as a nice word cloud for us. So I can see people saying informative, inspirational. I'm thinking that's probably you, Mandy, rather than me, frankly. Inspiring, insightful. Oh, it's all the I words. Oh, enlightening, useful, good. Hopeful, inspirational. Oh, that's great. Thank you ever so much, everybody.